we'll do the live thing first. Like, hey everybody, welcome back to the Bigmark podcast. It's me, your host, Bigmark. If it's your first time watching, welcome. If not, welcome back. Like I always say, if you ever wanted to reach out to the podcast, let us know if you wanted to hear about a topic or come on as a guest. We'd love to have you on. Please reach out, hit us up in the DMs on Twitter or X or Instagram at the Bigmark Podcast or at the Bigmark Pod. And hit us up in the comments too. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That's always the best way you can support the podcast. And we always thank you for being here, because that's the next best way you could do it, is watching and telling your friends and letting everyone know. We want to grow the Bigmark community, Bigmark podcast community, not the Bigmark community. Hold on. We haven't started the cult yet. One day, the Bigmark cult. But I'm happy to introduce and welcome back to the podcast, Ian Hanecak. How's that? Was that good?
That was great.
That was a good. Was perfect. That a good? Like I was practicing it.
That was great.
Over the podcast, doing the.
As long as you get my last name pronounced correctly, I'm happy. I'm a happy camper. So
perfect. So you might recognize him from not too many episodes ago, but if you want to go check out our last episode, it was a really fun talk. But we thought today, in light of the elections coming up, the federal Canadian elections, if you're watching this in the distant future, anyway, this is 2025. April now of 2025. Yep. We're going into, how many days now are we away?
We're about 3 weeks away.
The 7th today.
Yeah, it's the 28th of April.
28th, 2025. Maybe a historical day, but we'll see how it goes. So if anyone was paying attention to the bio that was under Ian's last podcast with us, notice that I did say that he was trying to be a city councillor in Toronto.
Yeah.
So was that your first foray into politics in general, or?
I mean, that was my first like formal. I mean, obviously to try that out is going pretty high up.
Very cool. Did you do like school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it might be helpful to say like, there was definitely a personality trait of mine that made me more inclined to go that route. Mm-hmm. I think like growing up, I was definitely someone who always liked to understand the why behind things. So best example I can give is like, if there's a teacher or there's a parent, some like, person in a position of authority, and they're telling you to do something. I was always the kid who was like, but like, why? Why are we doing this? I needed to understand it. I didn't like to just like do the thing for the sake of doing the thing. Mm-hmm. And so I think that translated into like, well, I like to be part of the decision making. I don't just like to have, things delegated down to me, or at least not with like a thorough explanation. Right. So
sure.
I think that tendency kind of got me more involved with like being at the decision making table, having some influence over like what was happening in my life, what was going on, things around me. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I ran for school council, like when I was in high school. Nice. was on student council. I'll never forget, there was a politician, I think he must have retired a long time ago, who, this was probably like 20 years ago at least. Mm-hmm. This guy named Gerard Kennedy. So this was I think he was in provincial politics, kind of in like the Parkdale High Park area of Toronto.
Okay.
He ran for the federal leadership of the Liberals at one point, but I don't remember if it was part of the class or just like he happened to be, at our school. Mm-hmm. But he came by, and I just remember, like those moments when you're young and you have these like very distinct, influential moments. Like I distinctly remember meeting him and being like inspired by the way that he was talking, and thinking it was like the coolest thing. Oh my God, he's like a politician. He's, he like represents all of us. He's really trying to like make this, community better. And yeah, that was a really like, influential moment for me.
Yeah.
And so that kind of just like, transitioned, as I got older, again, just like to be involved in like the decision-making process of things. Mm-hmm. And then kind of out of school, I got a job. I was working for, I think you guys have them here in Hamilton, called Snapped. So like Snap
yeah,
and
right.
newspapers.
Yep,
Yeah.
totally.
So it was a kind of local community newspaper.
Yeah, right.
They would, each community would kind of have their own. So like you might have like Hamilton downtown and then Hamilton like mountain. In Toronto, it'd be like Snapped Etobicoke and then Snapped North York, or Snapped Barrie. So there were like dozens of them all across Canada. And so I got involved with the one in North York, so kind of like the former city of North York and Toronto. Yep. Kind of like north of the 401, south of Vaughan. And I wound up like basically going from working for Snapped to being a franchise owner. So each of the newspapers were franchisees, and so there ended up being an opportunity for me to take over and start running essentially this like local newspaper. And so, essentially people don't know Snapped, very like local, big focus on good news. So very much like, new local business opening, or, this charity event that's happening, or politics. So a lot of what I did kind of day to day was just going around in the community, like meeting people, interacting with them, meeting business owners, meeting the local politicians, meeting, people who kind of had influence and, were in positions to kind of lead in the community that I was in. So like very much focused on North York, but yeah, just covering events. Like I'd cover like 50, 60 events a month. And I did that for about 5 years. And so kind of through doing that, you just like get really familiar with people. You kind of become someone that people naturally go to if they have like an issue, or if they have like a question about something. Just because I was everywhere, part of my job was just to be everywhere in that community all the time. And so this would have been 2018. So this would have been the municipal election in Toronto. For those who maybe remember or don't, that was the one where Premier Doug Ford, notoriously in the middle of the election slashed the number of wards in half.
Right.
So it went from 47 wards, like 47 councillors, down to 25, like in the middle of the election. So originally I was running in a place, I want to say it was Ward 43.
Okay.
But basically, like, people know where like Fairview Mall is, kind of like 401 and 404. Yeah, like Victoria Park, Leslie, and like Shepherd, like again, like northeast in North York.
Right.
And so I was running there because there was no incumbent. So the big thing, people who don't know, like politics is a very difficult game to get into. It is, especially at the municipal level, which is like the city level. It's notorious for favoring the incumbent, or the pre-existing, whoever the existing councillor is at that time, at that moment. It's a little different at the provincial and federal level. It's more party based.
Sure.
But so there was an opportunity there, and I had multiple people, dozens of people who said and sort of pushed me to do it. I think they thought that I had the best interest of the community in mind, that I was, sort of young and dynamic in a way that they thought would bode well for, representing the community. Right. Which I think like that's important. I want to make sure I reiterate that like this wasn't just like some, narcissistic move on my part to like think that I deserved this, or that I, because I think a lot of people unfortunately get into politics for the wrong reasons. Like this was something that was really kind of pushed on me as something that those around me believed that I should do, and that I sat on and debated for a long time before I eventually made the decision. But, so yeah, I decided to run, and I mean that was an incredible learning experience. I mean, there is nothing like spending. Essentially, the campaign was like 4 months, just like every single day you are either like fundraising, trying to get volunteers, you're out in the community, like door knocking, and I don't know if anyone's ever like door knocked, if you've ever like canvassed, whether it's like as a salesperson or politically, like that's a rough day-to-day thing to do.
Cold calls, man.
Cold calls. You get people yelling at you. You get people slamming the door in your face. Like
Right.
it's hard to do that. So as far as like developing a bit of a backbone, that was intense.
No kidding.
You know, I had my, you know, a few friends. I had some volunteers from like some of the local schools come out. So like I had a lot of help, which was nice. And just looking back on people who you know came out for me, that's like, you know, was incredible.
Yeah.
But so, you know, for a few more reasons than one, did not end up obviously winning. Otherwise, I maybe would still be doing that.
Sure.
You know, what ended up happening is because of that amalgamation of the wards, basically the incumbent in the ward beside the one that I was running in now was running in the larger ward. And so she had the name recognition. You know, people were familiar with her. So she ended up kind of running away with it.
Shoot.
I mean, I'm still proud. Like I think I got like 4th out of 8.
Great.
8 people running. So kind of middle of the pack.
Oh, man.
I got just about 1,000 votes.
Yeah.
Which again, considering like, I think I realized that there were 2 people that I actually knew, like who lived in that ward, who like let me know they were going to vote for me and that they'd try to get their families to and all that.
Right.
The idea that 1,000 essentially strangers would have been not inspired, but like influenced enough by what I was saying that they thought that I was actually the best choice was really cool to see at the end of the day, and obviously disappointing when you like come up short at something you're working towards. But just as far as like that first kind of getting your foot wet in the world of politics, it was really eye opening. I would say it was both inspiring and discouraging in a lot of ways, and we can get into a bit more of that. But
sure.
So that was kind of my like, you know, as far as I went, I guess, as far as politics is concerned.
Right.
And I mean, a lot of what I do now is still very much in that community space. Like I work in real estate development, but it's very much in like the public consultation side of it. So my role is very much to ensure that the community has a voice when it comes to influencing what's going to happen within certain real estate developments. So I'm still kind of doing that community thing. I've always liked doing that. I like interacting with people. I like understanding their perspective. I like, having discussions just like this. Why I keep asking you to come out, because I like having conversations with people. I like bouncing ideas off them and debating and you know. That's kind of the extent of what got me in. And
so cool. And where things went too. And I think that's so interesting, that interface too between people, right? Like everyone is so unique and so different. So anyone you meet and anyone you speak with, that interaction, if both parties are open, I mean, obviously it takes 2 to tango, but you know, you can get so many more ideas. You can open up so many more new avenues that maybe you would never thought of on your own, see completely new perspectives, right? Like it is really interesting. And it's kind of funny you say there is obviously an interesting connection there with sales and, you know, the cold calls, the canvassing, the just selling stuff, and like you're selling your ideal, you're selling, you know, I want you to, you know, talk more on this, but like, did it feel like you were selling yourself in a way?
I think it's both. I think I definitely went into it thinking it's more about the ideas. So it's like, what am I here to represent? What is the direction I'm trying to take council, or I'm trying to take this ward?
Cool.
I think it's more values is what I thought.
Right.
But I think part of what I realized, as I was saying, when you get into it, you are selling yourself. People visually, you know, auditory, they're listening to you, they're looking at you. They care about your like resume, like what, you know, would you go to, what kind of education do you have?
Sure.
I think also, I'm 27 at the time.
Yeah.
I think ageism for sure. Like they were like, you know, people who are 50, 60 years old, they're looking at 27-year-old like, why would I vote for this kid? So I think you wound up, whether you like it or not, having to kind of sell yourself.
Yeah.
I think you also like, and this is maybe more on like the darker side of it, like, you realize that a lot of people like do sell themselves. They sell, I don't go as far as like sell their soul, but like, you know, people are unfortunately, I think, maybe that's all they have. And so like they will unfortunately make some pretty shady deals or agreements, or hey, you hit me here, like I'll hit you back, or like that stuff is definitely real.
Yeah.
You know, I saw it, I still do now. Like, you know, it's just very like, it's a corruption light. It's this underlying like, you know, this person helped me get elected, therefore, exactly. Is this kind of under the table exchange of, you know, favors that I was, again, very like maybe utopian in my thought of like, no, you know, you can like bring about change. And I was obviously like Obama was a big, like, you know, he's very inspiring character, so charismatic. Sure. And like, it's people like that I was hopeful that there was more space for in the political sphere.
Sure.
And I think I was discouraged to learn that it was way less about the idea and way more about like the name recognition. You know, like you got your political families.
Sure.
You know, we've got one who just left politics. Like, it's just about your, you know, a lot of it is just like who you know, how much money can you pull in terms of fundraising, how many people does that mean you can hire to door knock, and how much material can you send to doors. And it's way less about the ideas or the values than it is about the person, unfortunately.
Right. And what is that? Like, what do you think that whole thing is where we can't seem as the people, or not even just we the people, but like, you know, as human beings, why do we have to, the idea has to also be coming from someone obviously trustworthy. I mean, maybe that's a simple idea, but like, I feel like there's so much more to politics and what the actual nitty gritty of, like, I guess the grand idea of democracy is, that it is about the ideas. It is about the plan. It is about executing that plan in a way that's not going to use up too many of the allocations that we all have, blah, blah, blah. You know, again, this is no revelation, but why does it have to be someone you trust? Like, why does it matter who's actually saying that? Because it's going to change in X amount of years, right? Like, I mean, I guess there's certain parts of politics where you can have kind of an extended time period in that position, right? Oh, yeah. Like, I mean,
if anything, people stay way too long.
Right.
I'm a big proponent of term limits.
And that's the thing. And
people get comfortable, they get complacent.
Right.
I think term limits are a great idea across the board.
My gosh, for sure. I mean, like,
you have 8 years to get it done, and then let someone else have a try.
Yeah. And I think if we fell into that a little bit more, and again, this is obviously from a little bit more of an outside in perspective of kind of what I've seen, is just like people just try to get into the position. Obviously all that work that goes into it, you know, but like all that work to just get into the position, once you're in it, it's just like, how do I stay in it as long as I possibly can? It's not like, how do I hand maybe a better situation off to the next person who is going to be there, like, no matter what, with the shorter term limit, you know, positions. But like, you know, it's not forever. Even if it was for 30 years, even if you were some congressman or some senator that's been there for 35 years and you're 80, and it's like, what's going on? I mean, I don't know what goes on in Canada. I think, is Canada a little bit different with that stuff? Because I know like some like congressmen or senators or something down in the States, they get mad old.
No, yeah, there's nothing like that here. There's no term limits. There's nothing.
Oh,
no, sorry. There's nothing stopping you from
here. Okay, you can be mad old.
You can be 90 years old. I knew a guy who, like, he ran. I think he ran until he was like 92. No, and then he like died a year later. He like retired and then like was 93 and died.
Sure.
It's because again, what happens is, because there's such a familiarity with the individual, what ends up happening, especially with the party, you know, so this is at like the provincial and the federal level, is the party will often really push for that candidate to keep rolling on with the next election, because it's like, once someone's been in for a while, let's say someone's been a representative for like 3 or 4 elections, so that's like 12, 16 years, like, people in that community do just think, like, this is my representative, I'm going to keep voting for them. Basically, there's a direct correlation between the length of time you've served and how far of a distance in terms of how many votes you get generally.
Sure.
So it's like, for the party's perspective, you want to keep running that individual so you can just keep winning and you can just have that seat in the House.
Right.
Because if they leave and they try to bring in this new person, it's almost like they're starting from scratch again. They got to like because a lot of, some people vote for a party, some people vote for an individual. Everyone's a bit different. To your earlier point, some people vote because they like think someone's a good person. Some people vote more for the ideas. Like everyone votes for something very, very unique to them, and that's fine. That's part of being. Of course, we're in a democracy that everyone's going to vote for whatever reason matters most to them. But yeah, there's people who are like way too old to be running, and they just keep running, and it's just the barrier to entry is incredibly difficult. And not to go on a tangent, but it's like the people get comfortable. It's a very like comfortable position to be in. It pays decently well. Like counselors, I don't know what it is in Hamilton, but in Toronto, I think they get paid like 120. They just voted to give themselves a 25% pay raise, so they're going to be making like 140. Sure. I want to say provincial MPPs make like, let's say like 150, and then I think federal MPs make like 180. Wow. And again, you get like all expenses paid, so like that's 180 clean. Sure, no doubt. And you have a whole staff of people that do stuff for you, pension, all that stuff. Right. So it's a comfortable living. It's and I think especially if you're a bit like. And again, not everyone's like this, but there are some people who are a bit like narcissistic, and it's like they love the attention, they love being that person, and I don't think a lot of them, and you see this sometimes, like if and when someone who's been in politics for a long time does inevitably retire, they sometimes, depending on who it is, they'll have a difficult time transitioning back to the private sector. Like the good ones who. Especially the ones who go in for like 1 term, 2 terms, maybe 3. Yeah. They're, they maybe were a lawyer before, they came and served their, they gave their public service, and then they went back to their professional life. Unreal. Whereas some people, it's like they've done it for 20 years, they retire from politics, and they like can't for the life of them get another job because that's all they were. They're a lifetime politician. So it's
Mel Lastman, he got Bad Boy going. He figured it out after. He's one who figured it out.
Yeah. No. It's funny. I met Mel Lastman. He just had his like. I mean, I didn't really know him obviously before that, but through all this stuff, especially North York, like he was the mayor of North York when it amalgamated with Toronto. Tremendous. They named a square up in North York after him, but he's hilarious. Yeah,
nobody beats him, man.
No, yeah,
yeah. And that's the thing that because I think when we were talking about doing this episode too, like. I was telling Ian, I was like, I don't know too much about all these happenings, like at least down to like the actual, you have the actual experience, but then just also understanding just kind of how it does work kind of from the top down. Because that is the thing, like every election I've been a part of since I've been able to vote, I don't think I've really missed one. I think I was still even voting like at the student ones when we were in London.
That's good, man. Not a lot of people do. I talk to a lot of people who have opinions, and then I'm like, well, did you vote? And they're like, no.
That actually kills me.
Yeah,
because I feel like a lot of more of our generation is out there, but again, you do talk to people, and if they're not into it,
they don't care. A lot of people don't care.
And then, like you said, on top of it, then they have opinions. It's like it's tough to say anything, and it is also tough if you feel like you maybe, I don't know, man. Like maybe we'll get into it a little bit more, but like I felt like. But this is where I'm going. Like I felt like I maybe didn't vote as informed as I should have when Trudeau was coming in, because that was definitely one that I was a part of, and I'll fully say like I don't know. I guess maybe it's just how things turned out. Yeah, I think maybe if things went well, I would have been like, yay, I did my thing, right? So maybe it's hard to look back with rose-colored glasses or whatever hindsight, but what I was getting at was this whole idea of just like how it does work kind of from the top down. Because when I did go into these elections, it is this like you have to think about someone who is representing you for like where you're living. Like obviously like there's like the municipal aspect of it. That's not, but when it's a federal election, which we're coming up to, I find that interesting because it's so party based, which is different from like a legit municipal thing. But I mean, the people who are representing you in your city, like that whole party based thing, like it's hard to vote for just the idea at that point. Like we were just talking about, like, and it does become even bigger than the person. It is so party based, and it's like, it's been so interesting these years with the NDP and everything, and I feel like unfortunately things have been like split and oddly between the Liberal NDP and the Conservative kind of vibration. But again, I've always felt like you end up, even whatever the ideas might be, it is just like a party vote.
Yeah. Well, then so I think that was partially why when it all came about, I liked the idea in theory of municipal politics, because there technically is supposed to be no party affiliation. There's no parties technically representing councillors. Usually, kind of generally who a councillor is more affiliated with, but technically there's no affiliation. It's only really at the provincial and the federal level. Yeah. But I like that, because what it means is you can make individual decisions based on the validity or lack thereof of each individual thing as you approach it. Like, you can vote based on your own conscience. You can vote to represent your community. Like, you can there's a bit more freedom and flexibility. Whereas when the parties get involved, they basically like crack the whip and everyone votes the same way. Like, that's how it works. If you literally vote against your party, like, it's like baseball, 3 strikes you're out. Like, you'll be kicked out of the party. You have to follow, whether you as an individual or as a representative of your riding actually believe that, you are voting how your party tells you to vote. And I don't know, that always sat uneasy with me, because to your point, like, fundamentally you're supposed to be a representative, you're supposed to be a voice for the people that you represent in your individual riding. Generally it's about 120,000 people that you're representing. That's kind of what we try to stick to in Canada.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, if your people, as you're out in the community, are telling you one thing, but then you're part of a party that's telling you to do something else. Like, I don't know, that I always found that a very difficult and kind of conflicting thing to have to manage as a politician. And so I always was a bit uneasy with the party affiliation. And that's why, like, people jokingly, maybe not, are like, oh, you should, you could run, you could do it, make another thing, make another run at it, like at the provincial or federal level. Like, I just don't love that idea. I don't like, again, going back to what I was saying when I was a kid, it's like, I don't like being told how I need to vote and how, like, sure, I maybe have my leanings, to your point. I've voted for 4 different parties across, my entire life. So I've gone different directions.
Sure.
I definitely have my leanings now, but, but I don't know that I, in every single circumstance, would want to vote the way that the party would tell you. So it's a tough position that you're put in as a representative, and you've seen it sometimes where people get kicked out of the party because they go against what the leader's saying or whatever. And that's the other thing too, to your point about but especially like provincial and federal, this isn't America, right? Like, you don't vote for your congressperson and then you vote for the president. We have what's called first past the post here, which is like within your individual riding, you vote. Whoever gets the most votes gets the seat, and then you count up all 400. Now we're at 445 seats. Whichever party gets the most representatives, whoever that party has elected as their leader becomes the prime minister. We don't vote for a prime minister, which is why, again, some people vote for like the leader, right? Some people, it's like you either vote for the individual at your local riding, or you vote for like the ideas of the party, like the platform they put forward, or you vote for like the leader and what you think of them. And I talk to people, and everybody votes different. Like, I talk to people who are like, I just don't like that leader X, whatever his name is. I like this guy. I don't like that. Or I fundamentally believe, I care more about social issues. I care more about economic issues, and they'll vote that way. So everyone's just different. And
which makes these things so hard, right? Where you're now thinking, as a politician, you now have to try to possibly think of how all these people who, as you know full well, are going to be voting different, thinking different, having completely different experiences in life, and you have to somehow try to encapsulate all those people's experiences, think about it in whatever which way, and then also live up to your party's expectations.
And that's why I was saying, I do think people end up selling their soul a little bit, because they're making promises to so many different people, and that's why they end up lying, because it's like they'll say, in one, especially federally, or when you're talking about vast geographies, it's like, leader will go to one part of the country, say one thing because they know that that's what that audience wants to hear. They'll go across the country to another part of the, where it's like they think something different. I'm going to say something completely different to you guys.
Right.
And again, it's like, it's just a contradiction,
Sure.
That's so obvious.
Yeah.
And yet it's like we joke about it. It's like, yeah, politicians lie all the time. And we're just like, yeah, that's just part of the game, which is ridiculous.
Right. Right.
But it's because they're just pandering to whoever they feel like they need to based on whatever they think matters most to that audience so that they can try to get their votes. And then it just becomes a matter of trying to get reelected. Unfortunately, it's just like, I don't know where I read this, but it's something like 30-something% of time. Like when you look at like the agenda or the schedule of most politicians is just spent like fundraising and doing like all the stuff they have to do to keep getting reelected. It's like going to events, going to fundraisers, like dealing with like campaign managers. It's like of the 4 years that they're in office for any given term, at least one of those like entire years is just serving the purpose of getting themselves and the party reelected. It's just a waste of time and money, all so that they can just keep, remain kind of in power. And just it ends up not being as much about doing what's best for the people, especially those you represent, and becomes a lot more of that selfish, like, I just want to get back in, or the party needs to get back in, and I'll do it and say whatever I need to make that happen.
And do you think historically, like, do you think this has just built up to a point? Has this always existed in democracy in the way that we do it here? Is it?
I don't know. I mean, obviously, not knowing what the founding fathers were all about, but I do think it's become a lot more systematized. Like, I know people who are like pretty deep with, different parties. They're leading some of the campaigns right now. And it's just like, there's a system. We know how to get people to vote our way. We know what we need to say. We know what we don't want to say. And it's all just so like orchestrated and organized. And there's just so little room for like the natural human interaction to happen, and for I don't know, just sincere leadership. Like I have my leanings, but I don't. There's very little sincerity, I find, and I do think that is more just a result of people becoming incredibly efficient at like getting the vote. We figured out how to do this.
Yes.
We've done the analysis psychologically, how and what inspires people to vote, what inspires them to get out and put names on ballots. And we're just going to focus on doing that, saying what we need to say, going to where we need to go, whatever. And it just becomes way less about like, again, those fundamental values. Like, what do you really believe?
Sure.
I just feel like there needs to be more of that in politics. Like more sincerity, more room for honesty, frankly.
Well, and to add on to that, the difference between the cogs in the machine of the federal government versus all the way down to the municipal government, there are very different things where what is actually affecting your everyday life versus what is affecting like the future of the country are sometimes at odds, or maybe not even at odds, just on such different pages that, like, again, that's where I'm like, it's like I have to care about really who's closest to me, right? Like politically, municipally, if we're looking at it that way, that's the most important election, and the politics that are happening there are most important to my daily life, right? Like the city you live in, that's where things are going to be happening.
It's the most immediate impact on you. Like if the city shuts down, your streets are not getting plowed, your garbage is not getting picked up, your lights might turn off depending on what city you're in, if the hydro is run by the city. Like everything day to day that like you need to operate as an individual, for the most part, is municipal. The most impactful is municipal. And then you get into like, I would say, again, at a high level, provincial, again, is mostly just like education and healthcare. Like,
fair enough.
At a very foundational level, those are like the things they're supposed to cover.
Right.
Generally provinces are also responsible for like resource extraction. So like, Alberta, obviously that's why they care a lot about oil, because it's like they're responsible for that. Whereas in a lot of other countries, it's the federal government who's responsible for that. So that's a uniquely Canadian thing. And then the feds, it's the obvious things. It's like borders, immigration. What I find is you get a lot of other levels of government getting and dipping their hands into stuff that really they have no involvement in, right? Like, I don't even know what a good example is, but let's like, technically and people can have opinions on this, like housing, for example. Housing is just like a big topic issue. Obviously it's like unaffordable. And so every level of government now is like, oh, we're going to fix that for you. Right. It's like, hey, I've got the solution for you on housing, where like none of them should be doing that. Like, I mean, again, not to like, I grew up, basically in government housing when I was young, and like, find me a great like place that the government built in terms of like housing. It's like,
right.
They call them the projects for a reason. Like they are notoriously bad and poorly run, and like they produce terrible results. So this idea that the government's going to get back, quote unquote, get back into building housing is a terrible idea. Like just run government, let the professional development people build the houses. We do this way more efficiently. Like let government be government, let builders be builders. It'd be like, hey, I didn't like the way that plumbing job was done, so I'm going to do it. It's like, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm not a plumber. I'm not certified. Like, don't get involved in that. So you end up getting levels of government getting involved in stuff that they really shouldn't be.
Right.
Again, just to pander to the vote, where it's like, oh, affordable housing, that's a hot topic issue. So let's make sure we say something about that. Let's make sure people think that we're going to fix that.
Meanwhile, it shouldn't even be
be in their vocabulary. It's like, just focus on your core fundamental issues. Like, again, feds, it's immigration, it's trade, international trade.
Big time.
It's border security. It's the military. Like, there are things that the feds do and that they should be focused on.
Yes.
Anything else, stop doing that. Please stop doing that. That's not your fundamental role.
Yeah. And I mean, you might remember her name because it's escaping me right now. I think it's she was, and this is more of a GTA thing, but I think she was the mayor of Mississauga for a while. Merle. She's like an older lady.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Something like that. Myrtle. No, it's like that though. No,
she's like 95.
She was mad old when she was even in office.
Yes, it'll come to me.
Okay, but she, again, this is kind of an interesting example.
Hazel McCallion. Sorry.
There
Hazel
it is.
McCallion. I knew it'd come to me.
I knew it was like
She's
an
really
older
old,
lady.
so.
I'm sorry, Hazel. But she was a phenomenal mayor, no matter what. Her and I think that it's an interesting thing. I mean, you can say what it is, because I think there was some, a lot of the work that she was getting done was like by her son's construction company. So there might have been a little bit of nepotism there, whatever. But let's be real. It got shit done in Mississauga. So a friend of mine grew up in Mississauga as well. He was like, the roads were always tight. If there was potholes, they got fixed. Yeah. If it was anything like construction-esque adjacent, like that needed to be built or repaired or installed, like it got done because and hey, he gets his business, it gets going, everyone's happy. Like, I mean, yeah, okay, she's got to pick somebody. That's the one tough thing, I'm sure, I guess, with any politician too, is just this weird balance of democracy and, like, I guess, socialism at a certain point, right? Yeah. It's like, yes, that umbrella is large of democracy, and I guess maybe socialism's a larger concept, but this idea where you want to be helping people, you want to be providing these things. There are tax. There's a budget that you are dealing with, and there are some people who. Then there's socioeconomic differences and stuff that you are dealing with all these people. And yes, we have a lot of by definition, socialist programs in Canada. But again, it's this democratic idea of like, we're still, I guess, choosing who's going to be able to run these things, right? So like I said, at the end of the day, she got the job done, right? Yeah. So like, that's where it's not just like, it has to be even, it has to be fair. That's utmost importance. It has to be fair and to the people, for the people, all that kind of thing. Teach their own.
I think what Hazel did is just like, she kept, like you said it, she fixed the potholes. She made sure the garbage was collected on time. It's just like, that's a municipality's job. Just like focus on the things that are the responsibility of the municipality. She was also known for, well, I guess technically at the municipal level, you aren't allowed to run deficits and you can't go into debt. Basically, that's just a rule for all municipalities in Ontario.
Right on.
So you can't like borrow money to do big building capital projects. So like, but she was just notorious for just focusing on the fundamentals. Like don't get into something that you're not supposed to. And I mean, you look at like I've seen pictures of like, what Mississauga looked like before Hazel McCallion got into office, and then what it looked like when she left. And it's like it went from basically square one and farm fields,
right,
to like, the fourth or fifth biggest like, city in the country, thriving, quadrupled in population, just doing incredible. And it's because she stuck to the fundamentals. Just do what you were put here to do, and don't stray outside of that. And but, you kind of brought it up. It's like, but then what happens is like, she stays on because maybe she believes that she's the only person who's going to do it this way, and that if she leaves, maybe the next person who comes is not going to follow that same procedure and is going to take things in a different direction. So I kind of, I get why people stay on, because they, maybe selfishly believe that they're the only ones who can continue down this positive path, or what they believe to be the positive path. But then, I mean, that's what ends up happening with the feds and with the province, is they can go into debt. And so it's like they wound up borrowing to, I think, get into some of the stuff that they don't necessarily need to be getting into. And then they run deficits, and then you get into a situation where we're in right now, which is that at the federal level, at least, like we spend more on interest to service our debt than we do on the military. And like, the fact that our military spending is an issue internationally, like, say what you want about Trump and whether that's actually like something, that is an issue for him.
Right.
But it's like, we're not meeting our NATO target of 2%. And it's because we're spending more than we spend on that to just service the interest on our debt. It's like, well, if we just didn't have the debt, we would have billions and billions of extra dollars. You know what I mean? So, we can get into more of what I would say is like the values side, which you kind of touched on, which is like, what do you fundamentally believe? Is it, are you more of like a free market capitalist? Are you more of a, social kind of safety net socialist? And I think, obviously we live in Canada, we have free healthcare. Like, we are a more left sort of social leaning country.
Right.
But that's sort of what I meant by values. Like, what do you fundamentally think is the best way for us as a country, as a province, even as a city, to like move in a positive direction? And everyone has a different opinion. Some people are more sort of socialist in their view, where it's more about taxation and then government to provide those things through services. Versus the free market capitalist view, which is that people fundamentally should be left to their own devices, and that they will make decisions that are best for themselves, for their family, for the community. And again, there's no right or wrong. Like I think everybody has their leanings, everybody has their rationale for why they believe what they believe. But that's what I mean by values when I say like what are the fundamental principles that should drive the direction that we take the country or the province or whatever level you're voting for at the time. And I find it just, it becomes like, I don't know, mudslinging and things that aren't values based, and it's more just like insults and politics. To your earlier question, I do think things have just become a lot less civil. Like, you watch a debate, political debate from even like 15 years ago, like literally watch the like Mitt Romney, Barack Obama debate from like 20, whatever that would have been, 2012.
Yes.
Not that long ago. Yeah. And it's like, these guys are complimenting each other. They're talking about how much respect they have for one another.
Sure.
And, blame it on Trump, blame it on whatever you want. But it has really, really like divulged down into just like insults and just a lack of decorum that is just unfortunate to see.
It's hard to say whether this came from the top down, or again, this is just kind of where we've gotten to as a civilization, or as a Western world. I feel like there's not a lot of room for nuance anymore, right? It's become extreme. So then the approaches have to be extreme. And I think that's where we've got, is that those debates were hard to tell who to vote for.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, man, both these people have great points. They're both even saying, like, no one's going like, nah, this guy's an idiot. They're like, that's wrong. Like that they do now.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's become the WWE.
Yeah.
Right? It's become this boisterous kind of play. It's like a play almost. It's like, you know, these people are acting as politicians just to get into the position, to stay there and keep staying there as long as they can secure their pension. Like we kind of saw it fucking like we kind of saw it happen, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, there's a dishwasher.
Well, I think so
it's tough to see it happen in across the board too, and like you're saying too, like these like really extreme leaders are kind of popping up because those are the voices that are being heard right now. Just because you have to scream over the din.
Yeah, it's you know, it used to be, I think, that you could disagree with someone and but know that person just believed there was a different route to the same outcome, which is to play the world or your country, your state, your province, your city, whatever, a better place. Like I think we fundamentally believed that everyone had good intentions and that we just had different pathways to get there. I do think now, unfortunately, we've gotten to a place, and you know, flame it on whatever you want, where if you don't believe what I believe, like you're a bad person,
and you're against me, and you're a bad person, right?
And you're trying to hurt me. You are trying to hurt my family, and it becomes way more personal. It becomes more visceral. It becomes more emotional, and I do think that's why it becomes more disrespectful, unfortunately, because it's not. You have a different opinion and a different way to make the world a better place. You're actually trying to destroy the world. You're trying to destroy my world. And I don't know how, I don't know, again, I don't know where and how that veered off the path, but I think we need to get back to a bit more of that, of just appreciating that, like, most people, sure, there's a couple psychopaths out there, and they're out to wreck shit.
Sure.
You know, intentionally. I think most people fundamentally have the best interest of themselves, their immediate family, those around them. They want to make the world a better place. They would like things to be better. They just have a difference of opinion on how to get there. That's what it comes down to.
And I think so many people are thinking like the system's got to change. It's all the system. I don't think it's the system. I think the system has been set up since like Greek times and has obviously been shown to work in general. But it's more as this approach where it's not only just it's not about winning this election and getting to the top, right? Like, and unfortunately, because of this highly competitive environment that has been created, you get different types of people who want to actually be in it. And unfortunately, and I think it was like George Washington is one of the few ever like presidents or like actual political leaders who didn't actually run. Maybe it wasn't George Washington or Jefferson or somebody.
George Washington, I don't think ran for a second term.
He didn't ran for a second term, but they were like, you are the president. They kind of told he didn't really actually even want it, which is like maybe the first and only time that's ever happened. Yeah. Which again, like, because it is a bit of a fucking paradox. Like, obviously, you have to like want to win. You want to be in the position, so you have to. How do I get to that position? Oh, I have to do this, that, and the third. Okay, that's what. And then all of a sudden, you see this way to get there, and you have to be like, I have to be better than this person, or I have to do at least get more votes than this person. So it's about as competitive as it gets. And unfortunately, that breeds different types of personalities, like we said. And sometimes those people are crazy, egotistical maniacs. Yeah. And we somehow don't see through the bullshit and realize what's going on, because a lot of the people who are well-rounded and even keeled aren't screaming and yelling. So like they're not being heard right now.
They're also not getting into politics. Like that's sure. What I'm starting to realize, again, having gotten really close to it. Like I think I grew up with this thought that politicians were like, we elected like the smartest among us to represent us. I think that was my perception. This Gerard Kennedy guy, he seemed so like, he had this like aura about him. He seemed, and again, he clearly was pretty goddamn competent. But I think that's what people generally think. And again, I'm making some generalizations here. And people generally have this perception that like, we select really, really like intelligent, competent, conscientious people to run and represent us.
Right.
And, no offense to any politicians who may or may not be listening, but like they are regular ass people. Sure. They are just as stupid as anybody else. They are just as incompetent. They are just as incapable. And so this idea that like, I think people assume, again, the politicians are going to do what's best. We're going to trust them to do what's best.
Right.
They're going to know what to do. They're the experts, or they like have access to the experts who will tell them what to do. It's like, they don't know what the hell they're doing just as much as you don't know what the hell you're doing. Like, no one knows what they're doing.
Sure.
And so I think that was maybe a realization that I came to, that like, no, it's not up to the politicians to decide this for us. And I think that, again, that goes down to the values thing, where it's like, I don't want to exude. I don't want to let go of the responsibility that I have to do good in my community, to do the things that I can do in my immediate community and my family and my neighbors. Because I think a lot of people just like take that responsibility off themselves and like, well, I voted and now this representative is going to do it and they're going to fix the problem. They're going to fix homelessness and they're going to fix the housing issue. And it's like all these issues, again, if you're more like socialist leaning, your idea, your thought is, well, no, it's the government's role, right? That's like the fundamental like socialist idea is like, no, government will fix everything. If they have enough power, if they have enough influence, like they will build the houses, they will supply the jobs, they will, feed everyone, they will do everything. Where, I lean a little bit more the other way, which is like, no, I think I have a personal responsibility to do that. I'm not going to give up that responsibility and put it on a politician. Like, if I want to help a homeless person, like, then that's something I can go do and I can go volunteer. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I can take those steps. I can give up my time to go do that. So, I think it's really my advice to people, obviously, is just like, obviously do your research, vote, please God, just go vote. I don't care who you vote for, just go vote. Yeah. And just realize that like every individual person has a responsibility also. It's not just like, well, I voted and therefore I've done my part civically, wash my hands of this issue. And if it doesn't get fixed, well, it's not my fault. I voted. It's like, everybody has a responsibility to go out and try and make, something better in the immediate community around them. And the reality is, if more people just did that, I think it would actually make a bigger difference than some politician in Ottawa who, maybe doesn't care as much as you think they do. Yeah,
maybe that would be the best role that the provincial or federal government could do at the municipal level, is making that more accessible to the people, having these places that people can go and know where to volunteer, know where to go, know where to actually make these things happen. Again, obviously, I know municipal is responsible for that as well, but again, like having
community connector, like
right, yeah. Now, you've alluded a couple of times to everyone, and this totally makes sense. Everyone has so many different approaches to how their values, what they need, what they think, what they want from politicians, from their government. Like, how could we possibly ever get to a place where you think everyone is kind of on the same page? Would that be through education? Are we just going to always have so many different opinions?
I mean, I think we're okay. Right. I definitely, I don't want to scare people. I think we're okay. I don't think like our political system is so bad that like, we need to fundamentally break it down or anything.
Right.
We are not the United States. We have 5 very valid and semi influential parties. This particular election is a very weird one. It seems like it's a 2-horse race, which is not normally the case. Like, normally the NDP is way more of a factor.
Big time.
The Bloc Québécois is way more of a factor. It really seems like it's just between the 2 main ones.
Big time.
And even though like normally they end up forming government anyway, like we've never had any federal government outside of those two. But normally there's a little bit of power that lies with one of the second, the tertiary parties.
Right.
And so unfortunately we've kind of moved more in the direction, at least for this election, the way the United States is. But at least we're not the United States.
Yes.
Like there it's like it's this guy or that guy. It's
Yeah.
one way or the other. And it's so that's why it's like America is so divisive. I do think as their little brother, as their neighbor to the north, we tend to take on a lot of the problems of the United States. We tend to assume that we have a lot of the same issues, whether it's like, the abortion question when they went through that, the racial stuff when they went through that. Like we really just like, even though we have a very different history from them, we tend to kind of take on a lot of the problems
vicariously,
through our proximity, if nothing else. And so I think partially that's what's happening right now is we are unfortunately taking on this like extremist view where it's like one or the other. You're, either with me or you're against me. Two-party system. And I think as long as like this isn't, hopefully it's just part and parcel of the time. Hopefully this is not something that sticks around. I think we're okay because we've got the Greens. I voted for them. We've got the NDP. I voted for them. We got the Bloc to represent the interests of a very, unique provincial situation in Quebec. Like
totally. Oh my gosh.
And they're all valid parties. They all get seats.
Absolutely.
Even like say what you will about the People's Party. It's like they're pretty extreme, but like people have a place. They have a place where they can vote, and I think they got more votes than the Greens last election. Like there's a place for everybody, and that's good. I think that's a good way to have it. So as long as we stick with that, I think we're okay. I don't think there's any like fundamental structural things that we need to change.
Sure.
Some people are making the argument that we should have electoral reform, and we can get into that. I'm not convinced. So that would essentially be like, so what we have right now is we talked about first past the post.
Totally.
You vote in your own individual riding. Whoever gets the most votes gets the seat. And then.
So just before we go any further too, I just wanted to clarify one thing with first past the post. Like, why is it actually called that? Is it literally like why do they call it first past the post?
I don't know.
Okay. Is it like a first, like literally who gets there first, or is it just like who has the most votes?
It's just who has the most votes.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
So literally people have won by like a dozen votes, and it's
right.
Like, and
it's
they're the representative.
That's how it is, period.
And so like people make the argument
instead of like college and like that thing.
Yeah. Like, so the argument people make about electoral reform is that essentially we should have what's called a ranked ballot system where like, because what can happen is if you have 5 candidates and all of them kind of get an equal number of votes, but one person just gets like slightly more. It means in terms of the total. So let's say there's like 100 people who voted. You could win with like 27% of the vote, as long as the next guy only got 26 and the next person after that got 25 and the next person after got 24.
Right.
It's like, as long as you got the most of the people in that pool, you are the leader. But then what ends up happening, that means like only 26% of the people actually wanted you to be their lead, their representative. So it's a weird system. So the way that people think maybe we should go is the ranked ballot system, which is like, okay, this is my first choice, this is my second choice, this is my third choice. Okay. And so you kind of like you'll do like rounds. So it'll be like, okay, like who got the least, who was the lowest on all of these ballots. Okay, that person's removed. Then you basically move up to the next level. It's like, okay, then that lowest person's removed. And so what ends up happening is you end up hopefully with a person that not only has the most first votes, but that also potentially has the most second place votes. So it's like, at least then people are saying, okay, if I don't get my guy, at least like second place is this, so it's more representative.
Which realistically, that's how it's going to go down.
But what the issue with that though is, what inevitably will happen is you're not going to have as much local representation, because what happens is you wound up because what happens at the larger sort of countrywide level is it ends up just being that's our ranked ballot is one system that's being proposed. Yep. Another is just what would it be called, like just like popular vote. So everyone just votes for like either the leader or the party, and then basically like depending on the percentage number of votes that you get, that's how many seats you get, and then like you allocate representatives down to the riding level, like the local level, the community. The issue with that is you don't have a representative who maybe even lives in your community. He doesn't know your community very well. So again, there's no perfect system.
Sure. Okay.
We use what's called a parliamentary democracy. It's very like it's from the British system.
Okay.
Americans, obviously, when they fought to tell the British to fuck off, it was like, we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
We as a Commonwealth country, we take all our stuff from the British.
Totally.
So we're a parliamentary democracy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it works. Again, I would say one person who's really influenced my like thinking politically and even socially is a guy named Thomas Sowell. He's a writer.
Oh, yeah.
He's an economist from the Hoover Institution.
Yep.
He says something that is just, there are no solutions, there are only trade-offs. So it's like, okay, you don't fix problems. You can make this one thing better, but it might screw up something over here. There's only trade-offs. So, we're never getting to this like utopian, everything is perfect. That's not how the world is going to work. There's no solutions, only trade-offs. So I think as far as electoral reform changes, it's what are maybe some little tweaks we can make to make it better? Do we need to completely restructure the whole thing? I don't think so.
Right.
Yeah.
And what worries me about this whole thing too is like, I find it interesting because, we even alluded to it earlier too, where it's just this idea of, what people kind of think they want and like, how people actually vote and how they actually act, right? Like how, what people see in their leader, what people want, like versus like this ideal, like mindset where we're being told all these things and people are like, why can't we kind of see through these lies? Like what, you know what I mean? Like it's almost like we get tricked in a way. And like, it's like, yes, we simultaneously want all these ideals, but like, we must see like the reality of things too at the same time, right? Like, so like as politicians, like how do we possibly approach like that kind of thing where you're like, you see the reality of things, but then people are going to vote this way, or people are going to act this way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. Like I think the local representation thing is important because that to me is what democracy is all about. It's like, people in different parts of the country, as proven by the way that Alberta votes versus how people in Quebec vote versus how people in cities vote.
Sure.
Like people based on how they were brought up, where they live, what they care about, are going to care about different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think representatives actually representing, like we've gotten a bit away from that, unfortunately. And I think just getting back more to that, where you're spending more time in your local riding. Yeah. You're having conversations, you're having town halls, you are understanding what the people actually want, what they don't want. And I think again, part of what I do in my day to day is trying to connect with people who don't traditionally show up for these kinds of things. Like, because what ends up happening again at the campaign level is, okay, boomers vote. The young kids don't. So I don't care. I don't care about the kids. I'm not going to go to them. I'm not going to ask them what they want because they don't vote for me anyway. So why would I waste my time on people who don't vote for me? So and it ends up being the people, the politicians spend all their time, whatever time they do, just catering to, the mostly white, older, home owning residents association types. And that's what ends up influencing policy, political policy, where it's like, and I get it again for, selfishly as a politician, like I get why they do that because they want to win. But I think, so it's incumbent on, it's incumbent on both. It's incumbent on the people to go out and vote so that you become more of an influence, so that the politicians start to care, like, hey, these kids actually do vote. So maybe I will pay more attention to them. And then obviously it's incumbent on the politicians themselves to actually give the time of day to those people, get them more inspired, get them more into it. And that, it's this catch-22 of like, okay, well, where do you start? Does the politicians start by giving more attention to the kids or the demographics who don't vote? Or does it start with the people actually getting out and voting?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think at the end of the day, I think it always does start with the people. I think that's one thing, that we do need to have that type of agency, I think, as a people. I think, unfortunately, sometimes, and maybe because we've been told one way or another, but like, I think a lot of people would rather kind of fall into the arms of government and just allow them to kind of do their thing. But this democracy thing is not, it's not the only connection between you and the government should not only be when you pay your taxes and when you vote,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know, you should be able to like feel more of this connection of like, I am actually making a difference, or at least I have my finger on the pulse of what is actually happening. It's not just coming out down. It's not this second hand, third hand kind of idea where you just see it happen, right? You have this kind of, at least a closer idea of this, like you said, not only, you know, like reaching out to your own community, but that's it. It's the people that do these whole things, right? Yeah. And I think that this whole wanting to stay in office, all these people that get in their position, they lose sight. And like you said, there is this balance where you have to be like, who is really going to make the first move here? And I think right now, a lot of people who are in politics and have been in politics a long time are just, they're in a rut, and they're in there, they're just going through what they know, and they're doing their thing. And it's hard to shake it up or whatever, what anyone expects is going to happen. But what I'm saying is, you need to get involved to be involved, kind of thing, right? Like, you know, like we were just saying earlier with this, with just like the representative votes, if we only have half or less than half the country voting, and then the people get in, it's like, no one really seemed to even have any effect on who actually gets in, right? And it's just like, it's just whoever actually goes out and does it. And yeah, maybe people want reform or change the system in that sense because they're like not taking part in it, though. So how, of course it's not going to work if you're not actually like fully doing it. We got to be like, let's get 100% voter turnout, and then you can actually make decisions on whether we need voter reform.
Well, it's funny, I think it was Australia.
Yeah.
Somewhere they were having issues with voter turnout.
Okay.
Same thing. Like they were like 30% voter turnout.
Right.
They ended up mandating like you had to vote. But then it's like, again, you can't do that because then
what do you? Yeah.
Well, because then you get the joke stuff. So it's like, you know, Bodie McVoteface is now on the ballot, and people are like, it's like a fuck you vote, and they start, you know, Bodie McVoteface is now your new representative because most people are like, you're not going to force me. You know, people don't want to be forced. So it's like, I don't know. We just
of course. Well, this is what we're getting at, right? It's like, how do you possibly like go and like, you have so many different people, you have so many different personalities, so many different approaches of life, so many different people are at so many different stages in their lives, so many different socioeconomical statuses. There's so many different things where it's like, my gosh, how could you possibly take everything into account?
I think to me what it comes down to is that people feel discouraged for the most part. They think their vote doesn't matter.
Okay.
I'm just one vote in 15 million, whatever it is. Especially if you live in a riding, a lot of people like, you know, you'll hear about like strategic voting where it's like, well, I don't want him to win, so I'm going to vote for this other guy who has a better chance of winning. And they end up like, I did that a couple times, and it like hurt my soul because I was like, that's not what I wanted. That's not what I believed. That's not what I truly, you know, not truly the person that I wanted to represent me. I was voting against something else. I think I just like, if I can encourage anyone who's listening, just like, do a bit of research, spend some time. Like, you know, these things do matter. They affect you. They have real life, you know, you would have just done your taxes. Like, they have real life implications financially, socially. They have impacts on your day to day. So just like anything else that you invest time into, whether it's your work, your relationships, whatever, take some time personally, individually, figure out what matters to you. What are the you know, whatever, make a list of like 3 things that actually matter to you, and then just trying to find out what each party thinks about those issues, what each party is going to do about those, or what their thoughts are, and try to make an informed decision. And please, for the love of God, go out and vote. There's no excuse. You could literally go out and vote right now. You don't even have to wait for an early polling station. There are election locations in every city. You could go vote right now, all day, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. All of Easter weekend, there are what are called early polling stations where you can go and vote. And there's like dozens more locations. And then obviously you could wait until election day, and legally your work has to give you, I think, 4 hours to go and vote. So like,
oh wow,
you have zero excuse.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to people who are like, well, I'm busy. It's like, you could literally go anytime. If you make time for anything else in your life,
yeah,
you can take an hour out of literally any time between now, any single day between now and April 28th, and you can go vote.
Up into 4 hours if you need it.
Yeah, I think it's either 3 or 4, but
Okay.
like legally, your work has to pay
give
you
some time,
to go
Yeah.
and vote essentially. So to me, it's just like, please, at the very least, do that, but don't allow that to be the only thing. Don't let that be
Right.
like you were saying, you wash your hands of it and
Yes.
you move on and just like, oh, and now I voted, so my responsibility ends here. Like, I also encourage people to like get involved locally, join a local club, join something that like you're again, what those things are that matter to you. You have that list, hopefully.
Yes.
Figure out, like, there's always organizations, there's always like ways that you can actually go out and hopefully improve that particular thing that you are passionate about or that matters to you. So don't allow your vote to be the only point at which you're trying to improve that particular situation.
Unreal.
Yep.
Wicked. I think that's perfect.
That sounds great. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I think that's the best way to leave everyone. If you're listening to this and you've made it this far, I think this is the thing. I think it's not only about voting a certain way, it's about getting out there and voting and doing it, and then again continuing to be a part of your community, to continue to be a part of this whole thing, that you do feel like you are making some type of difference. And again, not everyone's going to be able to do it.
No.
And not everyone's going to be able to do the same thing, right? Like, find what you want to do. Find the things that speaks to you the most in your community, and even if it's not directly related to the government, it is a community, and it's how we're all working together. Because I think that's the saddest part. And hopefully, if we leave everyone with something, is that we're not at odds with each other. We're in the same boat, man.
Yeah. We're all trying to make the world a better place. We just have a different path to get there.
It's all a fucking illusion that everything's separate. Yes, there's separate parties, but we have to have competing ideas. And I think we were talking about this right at the beginning of this podcast. There's that idea is that to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it is the mark of intelligence. And I think people need to understand that, is that you can think about a certain thing and not completely ruin your whole being because you even thought that, right?
Yeah.
Like, try to put yourself in other people's shoes, try to understand. We got to try to approach this whole thing with a lot more empathy and a lot more community, because that's the only way we're going to get through this whole thing, right? Because we can't exist as a country torn apart. Again, of course, there's more than two parties, but like we said, especially with this one, because we're talking about this election, it really seems like there's a major dividing line through things, and that's only going to take us further apart. We probably agree on 95% of things.
Yeah.
It's that 5% where things get greasy. So let's not let it overrun. Let's realize that, again, that's why you go back 15 years. You don't have to go back that far and see that there's more nuance to those debates and more understanding that, yes, like, once you get closer to that center line, not a lot of people are saying different things. Maybe it comes down to how the sectors are all split up and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But that's the only way I think we can do it.
Yeah. I just like, I think if there's a closing message, it's like, don't be discouraged. We live in still one of the greatest countries in the world. Things will be just fine. It's a weird time. There are factors, outside of everyone's control. And I know that that's like very unnerving, that there's this like wild man in the White House, regardless of how you feel about him. I'm not making a statement there. I just like, I think we're living in a very, very uniquely uneasy time.
Sure.
And I think that's making people feel like, and again, you watch the news and it's like everything is like, this is the most, fundamental election we've ever had, and it's going to decide the future of our country. And I don't think that's the case. Again, I think, to your point, mostly as Canadians, we believe the same fundamental things. We believe in, the social safety net that is free healthcare. We believe, in safety in our communities. We're different in the United States in that we don't like guns. We welcome immigrants. Like, there are some pretty fundamental key Canadian values that, again, to your point, 95% of people believe. We all are on the same page. We all want this to continue to be one of the greatest countries in the world, to continue to thrive. It's just that 5% of like, how do we get there?
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the little tweaks we make? You know, whether it's on economic issues, whether it's, you know, the relationship with the United States. That's really what it comes down to. And again, just encouraging people to figure out what are those key little things that matter to you.
Like
and
Thomas Sowell says, what does he say?
Thomas Sowell, there are no solutions, only trade-offs. What are the trade-offs that you're willing to make,
Mm-hmm.
right? Do you want more social programs? And if so, well, you're going to pay more tax, right? So it's like, or would I rather keep more of my money and make my own decisions personally and individually and as a family and as a community? Like,
Mm-hmm.
again, everybody has different ways of getting to that end goal, but I think fundamentally 95% of people are trying to get to that end goal, which is making the world a better place.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Unreal, man. Thanks again for coming on.
No problem, man.
I think that's great. Hopefully that was eye-opening to a lot of people. I think we covered a lot of topics and like I think answered hopefully some questions.
Yeah.
But again, all we can hope is that this upcoming election is that people get out there.
Have conversations like this. You know what I mean? Like do this. Go and talk to someone that you don't agree with. Have a conversation. Let it be civil. Yeah. Understand that they don't hate you. They don't, they aren't, fascist, crazy, whatever, this and that,
mm-hmm.
whatever label you want to put on people. Just have a conversation. Try to understand where people are coming from. Try to understand, articulate how you feel to someone.
Yeah.
I don't like the whole thing of like, well, don't talk about politics. It's like, yeah, but that's if you like aren't able to see how and why people believe the things, or you're not like open to understanding where they're coming from.
Yeah.
If you go into it willing to listen, to really listen, I think these conversations are actually really helpful.
Yeah, and if you completely avoid it, no good is going to happen.
You just stay on your own far corner,
and no one knows anything better. And that offering that perspective, no matter what, and accepting that perspective, really, because you can offer your perspective all you want, but being open to other people's perspectives, I think is the most important thing, right? Is going into a conversation and saying, okay, I don't know where this person is coming from, but that's not a contentious thing. That it should be, okay, now I have something to learn about this person.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Go into it with curiosity, and I think that many circumstances in life would be a lot more easygoing if you went into with curiosity instead of fear.
Yeah.
Right? Because like Bill Hicks says, right? Fear puts bigger locks on your doors. It closes people away. But the eyes of love look at things, in totality. And that's the thing, is that's the opposite of fear, is love and curiosity. So go out there, think about it. We're all in this one together. Go out there and vote.
Yep.
And I don't know. Good luck on I don't know. What are we going to say? Good luck to everyone in this country. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, maybe we'll do like a post-election, like
exactly,
and
we'll
now
do a wrap
see
up.
what's happening.
Yeah, we'll be celebrating or crying. I don't know what'll happen, but it'll be fun.
Thanks for having me, man. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely, man. Thanks again.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see y'all soon. Hit us up in the comments. Hit us up in the DMs. Whatever you want. YouTube. We'll see you at the polls. Peace.